And you are live, at least that's what it says. This is the first time that I have done a live stream in quite some time now. So, I am sorry, guys. I've not had the time to shave or really take care of anything, so it's been pretty miserable. But at least I'm here. At least I showed up. Do I get brownie points for that? Ryan, you're here too. How are you feeling?
I'm doing all right. I'm doing okay. I'm at work, and service is spotty out here, but I'm going to do my best to hang with you. I've already actually prayed for this broadcast already, and I just know that the Holy Spirit's gonna give us a wonderful, productive time today.
Yeah. For context clues, I have not prepared at all for this one. I don't do a lot of preparation for a lot of them, but particularly this one, I feel like I have nothing to offer. So I can't tell you where we're gonna go with this. All I can tell you is that God wanted us here for a reason, and I can kind of say earlier today, I woke up really late, and my job isn't to work from this hour to this hour. It is you finish the job and then you go home. So my problem with today is I woke up at 4 o'clock. I was 4 hours late, and I was like, Lord, if you want me able to make the broadcast today, something's gonna happen because I have way too much work ahead of me. I was running extra heavy, so I had an excessive amount of work that I knew I had to do, and I said, Lord, there's no way I can finish in this amount of time. I'm 4 hours late. I'm gonna have to make up about 4 hours just to barely make it on time. And I said, well, you know what? I'll do my part. I will try my hardest to get done. I finished 2 hours earlier than my average finishing time.
Amen. God made it happen.
2 hours earlier. Mainly the first store takes about 4 hours to do, and the second store takes about another 3 to 4 hours to do. I finished this first store in 2 hours.
Well, now you should be able to do it every day.
The second one, not much needed to be done. I did what needed to be done, and it all finished way too quick. Even though I thought, here's a ton of product I'm going to need to get out. It just went like that. And I'm like, I've never seen it happen like that. So I can tell you, the Lord's wanted this one to happen. I don't know why. But I'm here for it. I'm here for it.
Amen.
With that said, I did want to get onto the case of finding out, is Jesus God? That's kind of where I wanted to have this one go. I've had one where I try to figure out, okay, is there a God? Obviously, yes. You can just look at science, boom, God. But how do you know that Jesus is God without assuming Jesus in the first place? Most people who try to say, well, we know Jesus is God and here's why, they start with the assumption that we have to start looking at Jesus first and then go from there. How do you find Jesus not knowing it's Jesus? That's the big question we're looking for today.
That's a good topic.
Yeah. Now, as we ponder that, and it's an open room, anybody can come in. Ryan, do you want to get the link in the bio so anybody can join us?
Hold on just a moment.
Anyway,
I don't know if I know how to do that. The link.
Would you like to call? Would you like to call Steven real quick?
Yeah, I can do that. I'd have to hang up with you.
Yeah, go ahead. What you do is you, I think you just copy the invite link and then put it in the...
do that and give you. I'll be back. Okay.
Okay.
All right. I'll be back in a little bit.
Okay. So the main thing that's going on is that we have to find out, how would you go and find God? We know God exists, but does God want to be found? How would we find him, even if there was a God? We spent an entire episode not too long ago studying on this alone. What questions do we ask? Because I didn't even know what questions to ask in the first place. And the first question, and I should say the only question we spent 2.5 hours really working on, was historical science. Could we find him through historical science? Because we went through all these other ones. Well, could you find him through people's testimonies? Well, testimonies can't be proven. Could you find him through anything else? And the only one that we said, yes, you can find is historical science. And testimonies do kind of go into historical science, but historical science is kind of practiced the same way science is, normal science, but with history. So when you go to the history part of it, you can find artifacts, written claims from the time. Do they go with the other claims of the same people? And then kind of the information that they had back in the day. The question we carry now is, what questions do we ask for historical science? If you start with a scientific mindset and you say, we're trying to solve the questions, watermelons are blue on the inside, until you cut them open, what question would you ask to prove what I just said? Watermelons are blue until you cut them open. You could say, well, let's run an experiment. Let's stick a camera inside a watermelon. Well, once you break it open, it turned red. Do you see what I'm saying? So this outrageous claim cannot be proven because we don't have the right questions to ask. And even if we did have the right questions, you'd still have to exercise those. For example, if you said, grow a watermelon inside of it, right? Now grow a camera inside the watermelon before it can break through the surface. Well, then there's a lot more questions to go with it. And then you got to ask, is that possible? Would growing the camera into the watermelon contaminate it? Could you have a color ultrasound? Currently, we don't have those abilities. Anyway, that is our current problem. I don't have a solution for this, and that is why I want to make this an open conversation for anybody. It is kind of anybody come in, anybody see it, anybody talk about it. Let me see. Ryan is still off. Ryan, you coming in?
Jeremiah, you there?
Yes, I'm here. Do you get it in the group chat?
Are you there, Jeremiah?
I am here, Ryan. For those who don't know, Ryan suffers of connection issues out on his route. Ryan, are you there? We'll wait for Ryan to get back. My main starting point though, with historical science. Ryan, you there? Ryan.
Hey, you there? Hey, listen, I tried to call Steven. He's at work. He's busy, but he told me to send a message in the group chat on Messenger, and he said to try to see if we can get Stump to help. And so I did send a message on Messenger, a group message, and he said Achilles should be able to come. Should be coming in at any moment, and so we're trying. I mean, I have to. But this. I think I've been knocked out twice now, or had trouble. But
we'll see how it goes. So I was
go ahead and.
I was covering with the non-existent audience as I talked to myself the implications of how you'd go about finding Jesus without starting with the assumption of Jesus. And I referred to that of a watermelon that is blue on the inside till you can open, then it's red. How do you get to that absurd claim without starting with the assumption that the watermelon's blue? Because you can't disprove it, but the question is, can you prove it? And many arguments with Jesus Christ, you start with the assumption that Jesus Christ is who we need to look at in the first place. So my objective is to find Jesus Christ without looking for him, or to find whoever God is without looking for any individual, just looking for God. Which, as you guys all know, and I'm not going to try to hide it because I'd be lying, I think it's going to be Jesus. But the thing is, we can't know for 100% sure until we finish this series. So the thing is, what would you say is our starting point? We talked about historical science for a little bit, but what in historical science could we use to determine? Go ahead.
Yeah,
the characteristics
yeah.
of God.
I would
How would
say
you determine that?
I would say we can point to the empty grave. The empty grave is good evidence. To this day, the Jews still maintain that the disciples stole the body, which, had there not been an empty grave, they would not need that cover story. They wouldn't need it if the grave wasn't empty.
Ryan, here's the problem. I just pointed out to everybody, and you fell into the same trap. You started by saying, let's start with Jesus. The empty grave, that's a Jesus thing. My question is, how do you find it without saying Jesus? How do you start without Jesus to get to Jesus?
Oh, that's a good question, Jeremiah. I'm kind of,
because once you challenge, well, does the Bible contradict itself? Does you can do all those things, but I'm saying, how do you get to the Bible in the first place?
Yeah.
The only thing I've been able to find is, well, you can start by looking at every single document ever written, which is physically impossible because, I mean, if you consider how much time you have in one life and how many documents have been written, you easily run out of time and fatigue.
Well, how about this? The fact that Jesus actually existed has been documented by historians who were not necessarily Christians, like Josephus. Josephus at least acknowledged that he existed. So,
but he did not proclaim he is God. And my thing is, you started with Jesus again. You started with Jesus again.
Yeah.
And
I don't know. Maybe somebody else who will show up in the room who can devote their entire brain power to the topic.
Yeah.
Because I'm having to work while I speak.
Well, maybe that's why. We need to get the link in the group chat first, right?
Yeah. I mean, Stephen said that maybe Stump will. I did send out a message in the group chat, and wow, I like those waviness going. What's that waviness that you got going on there?
It's just the background.
It's pretty trippy.
I didn't even realize it did that. I got the background music playing pretty well too.
It's just sort of undulating blue waves, man. It's pretty far out. I don't know. Maybe you may end up having to make this sort of a one-man show, Jeremiah.
You're fine.
As far as why don't you tell us what your ideas are?
Well, that's the whole problem with it, though, is I don't have the answer, and I was hoping we could get a conversation out here. The only thing is, I do an earlier show than most people. Most people are not available at this time.
I know, because a lot of people are at work. Like, I'm at work. Steven's at work. Yeah.
You guys work at the weirdest times of the day. Good grief! You should just
I know. Can you believe
the same schedule I do?
I know. We're these weird daytime workers. We're not the normal nighttime worker like you are. But
well, anyway, here's here's my point. We get to the fact that historical science is probably the way to go, because everything else can be judged off of emotions and can be tampered with. Historical science, proving the documents go along with other documents, but where is the first thing you'd look at? Where would be the first evidence of God? And as I jog my memory, I actually do remember something. I forget who said it. I think it may have been Achilles or somebody else in the previous group. You can correct me if you look at the previous episode. Somebody said that if we created the universe, if God created the universe somehow, then he was very much so a parent. Okay?
A what?
A parent. A parent mentality. A creator of some sorts. And I think this is where the basic logic comes in. And even though logic is not a mathematical solution per se, it can help you get there. So if we do our math real quick and we just use consistent logic, a creator means somebody created it. Back to the science, back to the proof. That's what we know. Going on from that point, we know that a creator putting effort into this would somehow need to continue taking care of this. In science, we know that things decay.
Yes.
But yet the thing is somehow are still staying maintained. Okay? I'm going to make a few notes right here. Okay? We have our creator over the creation. And we see the creation falling apart. Okay? But
yes,
God...
creation is gradually falling apart, yes.
God holds us together.
He sure
does.
Did
you know that?
I like what you said the other day, Jeremiah. You said if God ever took his eyes off of you for 1 second, all the atoms in your body would fly apart.
So here's the thing. If we dive into atomic science, I forget the actual name for it, just so bear with me. But if we dive into the atomic science, what we find is that you go smaller and smaller until you get to this particle that has no reason to be together. It defies all understanding as far as we're aware. Okay? Does that make sense? What we know is currently some outside force is holding everything together. Now, does this point to God exactly? I wouldn't say so. This simply points to our lack of understanding in science. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you know what I like to say? Even though you cannot directly see God or detect God directly, you see his fingerprints all around you. You know what I'm saying? It's like you can see his fingerprints. Just like a detective, somebody burglarizes a home, and the detective tries to figure out who that person is. He goes and he takes fingerprints. And that's how they determine. And I think God's fingerprints are everywhere. Some people don't recognize them as such, but nevertheless, his fingerprints.
As I'm pointing out, like a mechanic has to constantly maintenance a car because the car constantly falls apart, there is the same thing going on with the universe. Things build back up every once in a while, and it doesn't make sense. The fact that the atoms are holding together is a perfect example of this. Now, we can reference to the Bible here and says that the Bible says that it holds everything together, but the truth is we're not at that yet. What we do know is that things are held together. So the fact that we have an attentive God is relevant. And that is my point, is learning the character of God can help us get to any articles that can point to God. Because the thing is, many people have said that God spoke to them. The problem is, many of these people disagree with each other on what God says. And if the Quran and the Torah and the Bible all disagree with each other, how do you know which one's right? How do you know that the Bible is right over any of these others? Or vice versa? But here's what we know as far as his character. God must be some form of maintaining parent.
Yes.
I use the word parent. I use the word parent loosely because we don't know if he's, the loving person. We don't know if he birthed us or anything. We at this point cannot determine how God created the universe. Taking a truly ignorant approach is hard because it's ignorance.
Yeah.
So here's what we do know, though. God held the universe together. He still holds the universe together. Why aren't things flying apart? The fact is, we're being held together. Electrons orbit protons and neutrons way faster than a gravitational force could ever pull them apart. Well, hold them together. Therefore, atoms should fly apart. Therefore, atoms should self-destruct and destroy each other. But they don't.
Yep.
The math does not line up. And that is the problem that we see. In a natural world, 2 plus 2 equals 4. If we were to translate this, it would mean that a living structure plus time would equal decay. And you see that on the grand scale. But when you go down to these little atoms, you see that's not true. They maintain themselves. They maintain themselves in a way that kind of breaks the rules of physics. So what you end up getting is we can see that some outside force is working on this. Anyway, I've repeated that several times. The point is, I'm working on this. I'm working on it right here with you. I've not planned any scripts. We know there's an outside force working on us. And this makes sense. Here's your box. Stuff in the box slowly dies out. Okay? That's the rules within the box. Something outside of the box can go into the box. And that looks like it breaks our rules, but it doesn't because it's outside the box. We can't see outside the box. We can only see what enters the box. So, we found a fingerprint, if you will. We found the last thing God did, which is hold every atom in the fingertip together during this video. Okay. Moving on.
Yeah, sorry, I was interrupted by a couple of spam calls. Oh.
You're fine. Moving on to the next point, though. Okay. Knowing that that God holds things together, whoever he is, we know that he's attentive. So we can immediately debunk another thing, which is that God does not care about you. We know God cares. We don't know if God's doing this just for entertainment. We don't know if God is doing this because he wants us to kill each other and murder each other gruesomely. But we know if God didn't pay attention at all, we would disappear. Kind of like if you are playing a game in your mind and then you forget about the game disappears until you remember it again. That's the best way I can imagine it. Anyway.
Yeah, that's a good illustration. I've got to go to a door.
Yeah, you can mute yourself if you need to go and do anything.
Well, I want you to be able to say.
Yeah, but that way you're not as distracting or anything like that.
Yeah.
Anyway, so my point is, if we were to look for other examples, we can now go into the idea that God is a parent. We don't need to just rely off of nothingness. We can go and see that God takes care of us somehow. We don't know to what level, though. All we know is he holds us together. We don't know if he worries about your emotions. All we know is he holds us together. So a God that holds us together, how would we prove anything else about him? How would we come to reason that God is anything more than glue? Is it possible that God is just infinite glue and energy? Well, we know that God has to have a mind to him because God also created the universe, right? And that means intelligence. So if I write down here the different things that I know God is, we know he has a mind of some kind. He has a plan. He has a design. You cannot say that this pen didn't take thought to make. I am way more complicated than this pen. This pen has one moving action to it. I have several moving actions to me. Therefore, God has thought. He's intelligent. Secondly, we know that he cares. To some extent, he cares. So we have a smart, and then we have a caring God to some extent. I'm not saying that he's loving and passionate and sensitive. I am saying I got interrupted for a second. I'm back. I'm saying that he is attentive. Ryan, can you hear me? I'm going to assume you can.
Hold on.
I'm going to assume that he can. I'm going to move forward until he says that I can't, because I hate that airtime. So we know that God is smart, but we know that he's attentive or caring. So attentive or caring. He is full of care. So now we have to move on to the next thing. We know that he's intelligent to some matter, okay? We don't know exactly what level yet. Ryan, are you able to hear us?
You're coming in very high static, and I can't really understand what you're saying. And sorry about that. My connection is not the best. I'm gonna have to try leaving and coming back because everything you say is static. What?
Okay, things are going much better on my end. I'm sorry.
Okay, yeah. Yeah, you were having a lot of static, and I didn't know if it was static from my end or from your end, but all I could hear was static. So, anyway,
yeah.
Hopefully our technical difficulties have been solved for the moment.
When someone calls me, it like leaves the app for a second, and I had to get rid of the call. Anyway, so we know that he's intelligent, and then we know that he is he's caring. Okay, we know that he's involved in this. So the thing is, what else can we infer from science to help us clear up some of this character of God? We know that he is some kind of parent, and he's an intelligent parent. He's not some slime monkey. Do you have anything else you want to add to it so far?
No, I think you're doing pretty well. Sorry, I can't develop my full attention to this because I'm working, but yeah, I think you're covering it really well, Jeremiah.
Well, normally I just don't invest brain power into things like this. I have to sit down and actually burn my brain. So I'm killing brain cells right now. Kind of like a burnout. But so far we've got mind and intelligence, and we have intuitiveness or caring. If I had to think of anything else, what can we think of? From what we know already, from the pure science we can grab, what do we know? We can't look at all the millions of claims, not yet at least.
Well, I really don't know. I guess it's just because I always base things off the Bible and off evidence for the truth of the Bible. But if we're not using the Bible, then it's hard for me to know where to go.
Because that's the problem. A lot of atheists will say, well, you can't start with the Bible. You have to get to the Bible. And I would actually say that is fair. To an extent, you can't always start with the Bible. Sometimes you have to get to the Bible. You have to say, why is the Bible valid?
Well, you can start saying, we know that the Bible is true because here's the evidence for it. Here's the evidence for instance, the empty tomb, which you said I can't use.
You know what? You gave me an idea. Okay. So in my original video, Is There a God? I debunked evolution by accident.
Yeah, I like the leaf example. You used the leaf example.
But here's the thing, is I debunk it by accident. It's not that God used evolution, because we debunked evolution. We didn't just talk about things happening by random chance. We debunked the entire theory of things taking millions of years.
Right.
That would actually be my main point, is we debunked the theory of it taking millions of years. I wish I could watch the video right now. I'm not able to to pull it up on
It is a good
YouTube.
video. I'd say it was one of your best videos because it's just so well done, and the example of a leaf, something as simple as a leaf, being so incredibly
I'll be right back.
complex. Okay.
Sorry for the dead air, but I am here. Ryan,
That's
I
all right.
trusted you to not leave dead air, and you left dead air. Okay, so I'm going onto Google to get to YouTube because my wife's phone doesn't have YouTube on it for some reason.
Well, next time you leave the room, I'll start singing. How about that? You want me to start
You
singing?
know what? You go right ahead. You have
Okay.
permission to do anything you want.
Okay.
YouTube home. Gotta get my channel. It will just take me a second. I need to look at my own video, and I'll play over the stream for you. And then calling all saints.
Calling all saints. Calling all saints. Calling all people around the world. Take this
I have to be going live at the moment. Forgot about that.
for you. Sorry, you reminded me of the song.
Okay. I'm trying to think. Where is the video? Here it is.
I just delivered to Johnny Pizza's house, the guy that owns Hoboken Cafe. Just thought I'd get a shout
Ryan,
out.
we're trying to listen.
Oh, I'm sorry. I didn't know you were playing it. Forgive me.
Did you not hear it?
I don't hear it.
Hold up. Let me cut the music real quick.
Okay.
Can you hear that?
Okay, now I hear it. I hear something now, yes. Yeah, I hear it. By the way, where did you get all that background stuff? That's very professional looking.
What is the meaning to life? This is something that I've been talking to a lot of people over Snapchat and Facebook Messenger, just to get people's responses. I get people saying everything from, dude, are you okay, to, I think the meaning of life is to live, love, laugh. And I would say, honestly, most people have no clue. So the first question I ask is there a God? And the reason why I ask this is because there's two schools of thought. The two schools are there either is or isn't. I've yet to find a third one, so normally I just ask them this simple question. And I don't want to go through the whole thing with you guys right here. You can watch the video if you want.
Very good video.
Yes. But
so if you want to look a little bit deeper into what chlorophyll is made up of, we can look at this. You have to go. Because without this, their stomach wouldn't be able to digest.
I remember saying something about evolution
and
there.
that was only because the car was going 40 miles an hour and keeping up with us. It's composed of solid. Simple drawing of an atom would look like this. You have your neutrons and protons in the middle and your electrons on the outside. So now I have a whole bunch of questions. Like, why don't the electrons ever run into each other? That would be catastrophic for the world if electrons just started flying into each other. How come? Well, that's when scientists start to say there is no reason for electrons not to collide to each other. They just don't. Because atoms are just mostly space, right? Well, why don't our fingers just go through each other? Why do they stop with force? I mean, it seems like I should be able to move right through my hand. Again, we don't know. It's just a weird, mysterious force. Now, granted, we can leave most of these to, well, science, is the study of these things. We're working on it, we'll build new things. But you start to realize that it is very detailed. Within every atom, you have moving parts. You have these electrons around these protons and neutrons, and if the atom were to ever fall apart, then you're gone. If the neutrons would fall apart, which is no reason for them to really want to hang together, then it would all just fall apart. Time for now, we can see from the dog, which is arguably the most complex, to the rock, which...
I can't find it. I thought it was in there.
What you looking for?
I was looking for where I talked about how millions of years don't exist, but I can't find it in that video. And I don't got millions of years to study that video or anything else to worry about, so I'm not going to bother with it.
All right.
If my wife wants to come back and grab her phone, she can, but I'm going to leave it right there on the table. My main point, and I can walk through it again in my brain, is the fact that we don't have millions of years. From a Christian perspective or not, the fact is we don't have millions of years. There are so many things that would have to go right, and they just don't. They just don't. That's a point. In the genetic code, we don't see everything coming from one particular type of creature. From the fossils, we don't have a record. They like to say fossil record. It's been made up.
Yes.
We know that people have lied about evolution several times, and maybe I should go into a whole video of it, but the fact is we don't have millions of years. What we do see is the proof of a young Earth. Not necessarily a very short zap of a being, but it just, things don't go on forever backwards. The moon would have to be infinitely close. You'd have to have all of these different situations go just right.
There's the saltiness of the oceans.
The fact that the genetic code is decaying. If the genetic code is decaying, then how is evolution making us better?
Right.
The fact is we're getting worse.
Well,
if things are decaying, it can't go up. It's that simple.
Well, the enemy has a counterfeit to everything that God had, and so obviously counterfeit to creation is evolution.
Now I call it young Earth. Truth is, the Earth isn't young. We have historical evidence, at least that we all agree upon, for thousands of years. For at least, 2,000 years? We can find documents that we all kind of agree upon and say these are at least 2,000 years old. At least. So, 2,000 years is not a short amount of time. That's quite a bit.
It is. It is.
The youngest anybody claims the Earth is, with actually, caring about what they're saying, is, around 6,000?
6,000 years, and that's a long...
That's not old.
That's a long time.
I'm sorry, that's not young. It's not millions, but it's not young. We call it young Earth because young is a comparative word. It's comparative to what? It's comparative to what, millions? Oh yeah, that is young. Depending on what you compare it to. If someone believed the Earth was 1 day old, well then yeah, I'd be called an old Earth for believing 6,000.
Yeah, exactly. Anyway. It's relative.
Anyway, so without going into too many tangents, we know that God is a God of intelligence. God is a God of intuitiveness and wanting to, intentiveness and wanting to pay attention to us. And then we can start to look at other things that we know in science. And that is this world couldn't have lasted forever. And it didn't last through evolution. We know this again because God had to create us. Evolution, it doesn't have a creating factor in it. It has a morphing factor to it. But yet we don't see that in science, and we don't see that in God's design. we see specific codes that if they mess up too much, they stop working. Get a horse and a donkey together, they make it like a mule thing. If you get those mules, they don't breed anymore. They don't, because their code is so messed up. You get change, the changes stop. They just die. They turn into slime on the floor. It's just, that's how they work. So what we can also say is, and I'll use the term young Earth. Young Earth. The Earth is not millions of years old. That means anything that we find has to fit these requirements. God has to be intelligent. He has to be caring to some degree. Caring could be anything. Caring could be, well, I like to sit back and watch them kill each other at war. Well, at least he's paying attention. You see what I'm saying?
Absolutely.
And then the Earth has to be young. We have to have some form of a young Earth. Now, is this 6,000 years? Maybe, maybe not. Science doesn't draw an exact line to how young the Earth is or how old. It just has a bunch of general things. But here's what I know. The generation of carbon couldn't happen for more than 10,000 years, I think, due to the fact that we would have hit an equilibrium. And I'll probably go into more of this later, but many people have heard of the equilibrium problem where, you know, it'd be filling up until it can't fill up anymore, till it's built enough pressure that starts leaking off the Earth. We've not hit that limit yet. You hit that within 10 to 20,000 years. So let's just stick with the 20,000 years. We've not hit 20,000 years. There's no way we've hit 20,000 years. That in itself at least says there wasn't carbon on the planet before then. That something would have had to change to make carbon, at least.
Let's also remember the soft tissue in dinosaur bones.
Soft tissue in dinosaur bones. But that doesn't say the world. That just means dinosaurs. See, a lot of these things, they're not talking about the Earth. They're talking about individual moments. Dinosaurs had to be young enough, some of them at least, that soft tissue could be found now. Carbon-14 must have not been generated before recently. Well, what makes carbon-14? Lots of things make carbon-14. 20,000 years ago, you wouldn't want to have anything that breathes oxygen, because anything that breathes oxygen makes carbon-14. Anyway, so I'm not 100% sure everything that makes carbon, but the fact is you would have to have zero of it, or at least so little that the oxygen environment would be zero carbon, pretty much. It couldn't be like today's standards. People have said that the mountains would have washed off into the water, and you'd have just like a big sludge ball, not mountains and oceans. Well, that means however long ago, something must have changed if you want to stick with any form of older Earth.
By the way, I mean, interrupt your train of thought, but the other night, Christian Pike hosted a show talking about the subject of how old the Earth may be, and he used the example of the Hawaiian Islands being volcanic islands, and how the amount of time it must have taken for them to form from lava, from volcanoes erupting. And I thought that was a pretty good point. But
then you gotta ask yourself. You gotta ask yourself. All these things, though, don't necessarily point to how old the Earth is. It just points to how old the geographical understanding is. For example, young Earth creationists stick with the idea of a flood. And they like to say that the Sahara Desert is about 4,000 years old. Well, that's because a desert can't survive under a flood. Not that the Earth is 4,000 years old. So I will say, you could rebut the Hawaiian Islands with a similar thing. Well, what if there was a massive problem out there where it wiped clean the Hawaiian Islands? You know what I mean? And the Hawaiian Islands are only a certain age because of that. So not everything in the geography states that the Earth couldn't have been millions of years old. It could just mean a recent problem happened. But I will say this. Why do we have a liquid, warm core to our planet? that is the giveaway factor. If you have a cup of coffee on the table and it's hot, then that cup of coffee wasn't sitting there millions of years.
True.
So we have proof of a young Earth. If you look in the right places, you will find it. Underneath all this land mass we talk about, we have a warm cup of coffee. If that makes sense. So we know there's a young Earth. We know that the God created this Earth. And we know that God maintains this planet to a degree. He lets it fall apart and he lets a lot of things happen, but he also maintains it to a degree. So whoever this God is, he must first have created the planet, maintained the planet, and it must have happened not too long ago, according to what millions of years would have said.
Right.
Now, there's a lot of things I want to be clear that I'm not assuming about. This is not even diving into the age of the universe. This is not saying that all of this was made by one being. This could be several beings. But the fact is, because of the logic of the first video, all of those beings would have probably been created by somebody. So the question is, how do we find out what the character of God is? My brain's starting to hurt, man. We may have to cut this one short. Only at 46 minutes, my brain's starting to fry.
And I think that, you know, we learn of God's character through His Word, His written Word that has been preserved down through the centuries.
But the thing is, we can't assume what His Word is. Who's saying His Word is not the Torah, or the Quran, or the Hindu, whatever, or the
evidence,
like Muhammad, guy, or any of that?
Yeah, well, those are good questions, but
how do we know that he wrote a book in the first place?
The historical evidence, like for instance, the civilizations that the Bible mentions that people used to think were all just mythological, that they later found the remains of their civilizations. They found ruins. They found archaeological evidence that these people actually did exist, just like the Bible said they did.
I watched a fairy tale movie that talked about real places. Doesn't mean it's real. Doesn't mean it's inspired by God. My thing is, how do you prove that God even bothered to write a book?
Because I think that if God did create the universe, He'd want to reveal Himself to us, and a book's probably the best way to do it. Which, of course, when it was originally written, it was on scrolls. But either way, the written word, whether it be a book or whether it be scrolls or whether it be on a screen, I think the written word is the best way for Him to.
So here's the thing, though. You think that. You think, in your own puny understanding, no offense, that's what God would do. But the truth is, we don't have proof of that yet. We have to find the proof.
Well, or if you wanted to,
starting with an assumption, actually, which is that God wrote something, and now we got to find the proof for that written something.
Or He could just come down from the sky and say, "Hey, everybody, look at me! Look at me!" Yeah. I mean, if you wanted to, we could do that.
But my point is, how do you find out if He communicated to us? All we know right now is the character of God is someone who is a creator. He's intelligent. He is constantly keeping us together and maintaining us. And that the earth wasn't built too long ago.
Right.
Earth would have cooled off in about 1 million years. Not 40-some million years. Or a billion, or whatever it is.
Yeah. I don't know.
They keep changing the number. They went from like 1 million years to 2 million years to like 40 billion to 13 billion to whatever the number is. They keep changing.
I'm not able to see the chat. Is there anybody speaking in the chat room? Offering their opinions and contributions?
I don't know. And neither am I going to check right now.
Okay.
This show, I guess, will just be more of a you and me because we didn't get any help on trying to figure out the link. We'll get that fixed next time. As it is, at the moment, we started really early.
Yeah, a little early. But I'm also on my way to my lunch location because I
Uh-huh.
reached that point on the route that I told you about where I'm the closest I can be to where the restaurants are.
Uh-huh.
So I'm on my way to Waffle House as we speak. Um,
Well, we got 10 minutes till we make it to the hour mark. Let's shut it off at an hour because there is something I wanted to show you. So let's take a recess. My
okay,
brain's
okay.
turning too much. I've really exhausted it on trying to figure out the attributes of God using nothing but my mind, and that hurts.
It's
Ryan, there
hard
is
to
one
do.
thing I wanted to show you, and I wanted to show the audience. So we're going to leave the office.
Alrighty.
To those who don't talk to me on a regular basis, you get a brief house tour. You get a beautiful ceiling.
What are, I'm not even looking at the screen at the moment because I'm driving.
Ceiling, and then you have, I gotta unlock the door. I need my keys. More ceiling. It's my wife laughing in the background. And then you have
Oh,
a
okay. You're
beautiful door. Look at this door.
okay. Yeah, I know what your apartment
And that
looks
was the
like, so I
house
don't need to
tour.
look at the screen.
That was the house tour. Ryan, would you say that was a
Yeah.
fair representation of the house tour?
Did you show that little window where the beautiful metal
No,
sculpture
I
is
just showed
located?
off the ceiling. Showed off the best part of it.
Why don't you show off that beautiful metal sculpture that's in the window?
Well, see, the thing is, I really don't care what people see about my house, but my wife kind of does.
Oh,
So
she doesn't want people to see that metal sculpture.
she was just in the house, and I don't think she wanted people seeing anything.
Yeah, she doesn't like to be.
I know it's in here somewhere. Give me a minute. Oh, it's in the back. By the way, you can check out the back of my car. Don't know if you guys can see that or not.
Yes, the back of your car is very unique, Jeremiah, and
It's
it's
bright.
very you. It's very you.
If I'm driving down the road, you'll notice. Okay. Okay. I have a fossilization contraption. I wanted to show Ryan. I don't know if you saw it or not. Did you ever see it?
I don't know. I'm driving right now, so I can't look at the screen.
Well, there's nothing on the screen to show yet.
Okay.
I'm pulling it out at the moment.
Okay.
It's really heavy. This. Can I turn the camera? I'll just show you like this. That right there
Uh,
is my fossilization contraption.
oh, okay. You know, you didn't show me that when I was there
It
this last
shoves
weekend.
a big metal square down on the inside to compress the sediments, and it's going to make these plate fossils. You've probably seen something
Oh,
familiar
wow.
to it.
Uh-huh.
While I'm down here, I could
That's
probably just bring it to the house because I'm
yeah.
not going
Bring
to.
it to the house.
What is in that bucket? That is concerning.
Bring it to the house. I'm
I got
about
a
to turn
big
into the parking
5-gallon
lot.
bucket of something in here, and I don't know what it is. And it's tipped over sideways, so the potential of leaking was greater than zero. Anyway, I'll leave that part down there, but that is the fossilization contraption that I briefly mentioned on one of somebody else's episodes that I was working on. I now have it. That piece right there cost me about $200, which is a bargain for custom welding projects. And then from there, I'll turn it sideways so it fills more of the camera lens. From there, I still have to buy the bottle jack, and then I have to have machine holes drilled in it, and then nuts and bolts. And then I got to find the exact sediment I need. I haven't worked on the formula just yet, but turn around so the sun's not in your eyes. But that's what I got so far. So yeah,
Okay.
that's it. Peace out.
That's
Thanks for
cool.
watching, and we'll see all of you later. So it was only
Okay.
an
Are
hour
you
today,
ending?
and we got early, so I don't blame it if nobody watched yet. But
Okay. Cool. Because I'm about to walk into Waffle House. So you did a good job, Jeremiah. And sorry,
thank you.
I couldn't be more of a help, but it's hard to do this and
No,
work
you're
at the
fine.
same time.
Somebody
Yeah.
just to bounce my ideas off of and make
Yeah.
progress in trying to find out who God is from a subjective viewpoint.
Amen.
So thank
Absolutely.
you. That is the show. Have fun,
All right.
and goodbye.